was waiting for this one. So recently, episode 7 of the Last of Us HBO series had premiered, Left Behind, which is an adaptation of the DLC content of the original game. We get to see Ellie's backstory on how she got bit, her first love with Riley. If you remember in the previous episode, Joel gets impaled by a spike when one of the raiders attacks him. And here, it opens with Ellie and Joel hiding in this abandoned house somewhere, and she's trying to find medical supplies, and he's begging her to go north to find Tommy. Now, does he mean, leave me here, I'm gonna die anyway, just go back to Tommy's? Or go find Tommy and have him take you to the Fireflies? Could be either one. And she goes upstairs into this room and has this moment where she stops, and then for the majority of the episode, it's one giant flashback of her last time with Riley before they got bit. Now, in case any one of you are new to the show, I'm not going to tell you all the details of the Last of Us story, but for those of you who are, you'll know what I'm alluding to, but I'll try to keep my spoilers to a minimum as for the rest of it and what happens after this. But if you play Left Behind, Ellie ends up in this abandoned shopping mall somewhere in Colorado trying to find supplies to help Joel, and she has to sneak her way around while avoiding the raiders that attacked them earlier. And it's intercut with flashbacks to her and Riley's last time together in a shopping mall outside of the QZ in Boston, while also trying to avoid infected too. This time we get to see more of a look inside what life is like for Ellie. She's going to the school in Boston in the QZ. She gets into a fight with this one girl who antagonizes her, and this army captain or a federal officer gives Ellie this choice. Do you want to go this way or do you want to go that way? You might actually have a future if you decide to go this way and become an officer, because we're actually making a difference in holding all this stuff together. And as we see in the rest of the episode, she and Riley have a clashing of ideologies. Riley's with the Fireflies, Ellie is with Fedra. Both of them are young kids. They have no idea what goes on outside those walls. But how they go back and forth with each other and how Fedra's doing it right versus how the Fireflies are doing it and so on, it's a really fascinating type of conversation, because I think that with the way things have gone in the United States for the past 20 years since the outbreak, what's really the best hope for not just the United States, but all around the world? US government have it all correct, or do the Fireflies have it all correct? And I think that any smart person would know there is really no morally correct or incorrect choice. But along the way, for the good of their causes, they have to commit some really horrible and morally ambiguous acts. I'm not going to go over all the changes that were made in this episode. There's really not that many to point out. Instead of the arcade game being called Angel Knives, they actually use Mortal Kombat, which I guess in the Last of Us game, it is a fill-in parody of Mortal Kombat, but they couldn't do it in the game because of licensing issues. There's also little things that they do, like they go up and down the escalator, which all of us in the normal world wouldn't really think about. But in the world of The Last of Us, these two kids are amazed by it. They've never seen electric stairs before. Electric stairs! All the while, Take Me On by Aha is playing, and for anyone who's played the second game with a certain moment, we all know what the implications of that are. And this episode just adds further layers on top of it. Thanks to the Last of Us series, I can't ever listen to this song the same way again. But they look around and see this Victoria's Secret place where they talk about the different undergarments that women wear and how they try to imagine each other wearing that stuff, and Ellie is not really the girly girl type. I think she strikes me as more of a tomboy type, if you will. Especially in the apocalypse. I mean, who really cares what kind of clothes you're wearing? As long as you have clothes. Shows you where people's priorities are versus where they were back in the olden days. Of this Last of Us world, at least. And we get to see them use the photo booth, and they actually get to print the photos, since in the original they tried to upload it or print them and the thing wasn't working. But now it gives Ellie something to remember Riley by. And for any of us who have played the DLC, we all know what's going to happen. But I really, really like the actress who plays Riley. I think her name is Storm Reed. I don't know. If anyone knows who it is, just please tell me who it is. Wish I could remember off the top of my head, but I don't. I usually don't go off of notes. I try to remember up here, but for some reason today, my brain is just not with it. So if you know the actress's name, just please let me know below. The design of the shopping mall is extremely on point. From it getting lit up for the first time and seeing Ellie's response to all the lights and all the signs that are inside that haven't been used in 20 years, how run down it looks. It almost kind of reminds me of this one shopping mall that I went to not that far away from where I live. Now, obviously, we don't live in the world of The Last of Us, but this was like the year after COVID, 2021. My mom and I took a trip to the neighboring county where there was a Macy's in the shopping mall. Most of the stores were gone. There was a lot of stores that were just unattended or abandoned, and there were some empty spaces saying to be filled up really soon. I think a lot of that was because, not just with COVID, but I also think that there was a lot of lack of people coming to the stores and it wasn't really doing so good economically. Plus that area that we went to wasn't exactly the greatest to go to, but it was all we could get because we don't exactly have a Macy's in our immediate area, if you know what I mean. This kind of reminded me of that in some ways. And in the story, the mall is blocked off because it's supposedly filled with infected, but as Ellie and Riley walk around, they don't see an infected in sight. But we do get a slow panning shot as they're busy playing Mortal Kombat. Floats over to this plastic doll store, and you see an infected lying against the wall sitting down, and it wakes up hearing the sound. And we all know that eventually that infected is going to come and find Ellie and Riley. That this is going to go bad sooner or later. But then Ellie finds all these pipe bombs that Riley made, and it turns out that she's posted there by the Fireflies, and the next day she's supposed to leave with the Fireflies to go to this abandoned quarantine zone in Atlanta. Ellie is visibly upset because this is her best friend, and she doesn't want her to leave, and since she hasn't seen Riley in some time, she feels used, and she storms off, but then decides to come back, and she finds her in the Halloween store, which is also in the DLC, where they, real quick, they make a reference to the Wizard of Oz.
Ha 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 ha! The ruby slippers! What have you done with them? Oh my, Toto! What will we do? Oh man.
When I first played that, I thought, oh wait, the Wizard of Oz exists in this world. But they eventually talk it out and patch things up, and they start to dance to that song, I Got You Babe, which is a cover by Etta James, and it was shown in the original game. Put on those Halloween masks, that scary clown mask and the Wolfman mask, dancing on top of these displays that are in there. And even though I know exactly what happens next, my emotions were running high, and it still got me.
Don't go.
People already made a big deal about episode 3 with Bill and Frank. If people are still going to carry that stuff over here with Ellie and Riley, I don't want to hear a word of it. But before they could figure out what to do next, the Stalker comes in and ruins everything. And once they kill it, and I do like seeing Ellie's reaction to when she realizes that she killed her first infected. Because as far as we know at this point in the series, we don't know if she's killed anything or anybody or any kind of infected. Maybe she's killed a person or two, but infected? No, not as far as we know. But her reaction to seeing the bite on her arm felt so scary when she realizes that she's going to turn into one of those things. Or so she believes.
No, 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 no! No!
Then it cuts back to Ellie in the house with Joel, and she ultimately decides to find supplies for him, and then she starts sewing up his wound. And I think the moral of the story is after she lost Riley to the infection, or to some kind of wound, someone that she loves the most, she's not going to lose again. And who she cares about the most right now is Joel. And we do get that final conversation that they have where Riley says, let's just wait it out, we can be all poetic and lose our minds together. And without any specifics for anyone who doesn't know, that does come into play in the final scene of part 1. But we don't see what happens to the two of them afterward, because if you remember, it takes about within 2 days of a person to become fully infected and turn into a runner. I'm wondering if we will get to see a follow-up of how Ellie realizes that she's not going to turn into infected, and that Riley does. Maybe, maybe not. But I don't really think it's necessary. If they do end up showing it, then fine. I'm okay with that. I think it's better to just kind of leave that ambiguous. We all know what comes after that. I don't think it's really a surprise. Like, Riley is never seen when Joel meets Ellie, or even mentioned, so I think it's safe to assume, obviously, she died. Either she killed herself, or Ellie killed her for her, in order to avoid becoming infected fully. Another great episode from this series. Creators of the show are killing it, and especially since Neil Druckmann has a creative voice in this, because as I've said before, he's not going to allow any kind of creative choices that don't make sense in the story, or that would ruin the integrity of The Last of Us. But now we're going to get to episode 8 on Sunday, which involves the group led by David. And that has a pretty big impact on Ellie herself. Any of us who played the game, we all know what it is. Anyone who's not familiar, well, prepare yourselves. That's all I'll say. Just prepare yourselves. That's all I got to say about episode 7 of The Last of Us. Thank you guys so much for watching. Comment below and tell me what your thoughts are, and I'll see you guys in the next one.